All righty.
There we go.
We have launched.
Seems like it's working.
Now I
And
get
there
it.
we go.
You never know. All right, welcome everybody. Planet Green Trees, officially episode number 399. We're calling it Half Cocked. The world according to Jim Powers. I'm your host, Michael Kamorn. We're about to embark for about 2 hours out of discussion, debate, pontification about medical marijuana and marijuana cannabis reform in Michigan. And as we like to do each week, let me please introduce the community entertainment. We'll start with the guy running the board over there. His name's Jim Powers, the founder of Michigan Parents for Compassion.
Good evening, Michael. Good evening, everybody. It's good to be here, and I would just say fuck Bill Schuette.
There you go. We have a really exciting show. If I didn't say that, we have a special in-studio guest I'm going to get to in a minute in anticipation of that. Let me go around the room and continue with our community entertainment introductions. The next is our dear friend and mama activist, Deborah Young.
Hi, Michael. Hi, everybody. I'm glad to be back after a 3 or 4 week hiatus. And I also say, fuck Bill Schuette.
Well, we have a growing consensus here. Move around the room. We have who is the one and only recovering police officer. Goes by Esteban in some circles. I like to call him Steve around here. He is a superstar. Come on, law. Please welcome Steve Miller.
Hello, good to be here. Good to see everybody. Deb, good to have you back. We got an awesome in-studio guest tonight who I will let Michael introduce, but very honored to have him here tonight. Steve. Oh, and I'm going to triple down on the fuck Bill Schuette.
There you go. Someone else did too. Someone else just bailed on him that normally supported him, but now is not. Who was that? They asked him to reconsider their endorsement for him. What was that? I saw that.
A bunch of businesses in the
a whole
chamber,
bunch
I
of
believe.
people.
It was, all right, so,
Prominent Republicans.
I know. I can't. We'll figure out what it is. All right.
There's a list.
Standing nearby, we've got Josh Colton, attorney at law. My first round draft choice.
Appreciate it, Michael. Pleasure to be here.
Contract is not renewed yet.
Still riding him as the franchise QB.
We'll see how he does in the
Fuck Bill Schuette.
preseason tryouts again. We've still got to earn a spot. And, of course, we got T-Pain, the rover of all rovers, working over there, just keeping things in order. My dear friend, the internationally renowned attorney, guitar player, and iguana lover, Jeff Frazier.
Muy buenas noches, que Bill Schuette me mama la verga.
Fuck Bill Schuette. Fuck Bill Schuette.
Jeff may be making an anti-Bill Schuette movie. He's totally immersed in that computer for like the last 9 hours. I want to see what's on the other side of that, seriously. We have Tommy Two-Tone is over here doing some video and stuff, who has promised to make everyone look in their best light. And now, without further ado, let me please introduce our in-studio guest. And there are 3 or 4 YouTube videos that we did from the first round of this. And there's just been so much information. It's such a great time to have him back in, see where we are and everything. But please welcome the one and only. He's known statewide, maybe even nationally, as the godfather of Michigan, countrywide in Michigan. Please welcome Tim Beck.
Oh, thank you so much, Michael. I'm really glad to be on the show. And yeah, as far as Schuette's concerned, I'm not going to use the F word, but I'll be glad when this SOB is gone. You know, we've been under this guy's boot for so long; it'll be a pleasure. And he's out of here.
You know, I'm gonna waive my opening or my rant because I really want to get into it. And every topic that comes out of everyone's mouth is such an interesting time, and I do want to just do a couple of shout outs to my dear friend Dewey and Pam and Alan Peisner, if he's listening, maybe calls in and gives us some stuff. And for those that were interested in the O'Toole matter up in Mackinac, it is off. More suffering, but I think at the end of the day, I know the dog will get his bone. All right, so as I said, I'm going to waive my rant, but we were just I was looking at this MMLE event a week ago, and Tim was there and I was there. And, the topics are so fresh and hot right now. But before we get to some of those, what do you think about Schuette, where he stands? Has he got a chance for governor? Do we believe the polls? Do the Republicans even like him anymore? What do you think, Tim?
It doesn't look good. I mean, it really don't. This type of lead, this, close to the game being over, and the fact that Snyder's not going to support him. There's a group in the party, and I know the party fairly well. They don't like the guy. They just don't like him. He's not a nice person. He comes across smooth. He's very manipulative, behind the scenes. He's cunning, but he's not a lovable fuzzball. And
Is he the leader of the party at this stage?
well, I don't. If there's any one leader of the party that everybody agrees is a great man, it would be Ron Weiser. He's party chair. He's worth millions and millions and millions. He's done a whole lot for the GOP. He is the author. He's the creator of Right to Work. He's the architect of that. He's actually a very modest individual, no sense of pretense or ego. He was up at Mackinac. They were giving him some award. They were giving these awards, and all these people are just blubbering on and on and on. Oh, how great they are. And Ron Weiser walked up. They handed him his award. He said, "Thank you very much," and walked off the stage.
He's a humble, great guy. He's like, well, yeah.
He is well loved, and he's effective. But
Unlike Shooty.
yeah,
Unlike
right,
Shooty.
unlike
Like he's
Shooty,
the guy
sure.
that people go to and they
No.
all right.
He's the divisive personality.
But there's the party. The Republicans don't, vote off party even if they hate the candidate. I mean, but all right, putting that aside for a second.
They don't usually come out against
Right.
the candidate like they've come out against Bill Schuette either. I think, and Tim, you probably know better than I do, but I feel like this has definitely introduced a significant divide into the Republican Party in Michigan.
There's a coalition,
Yeah,
and
it has.
they became public.
Well, that's correct, and these are, moderate Republicans or whatever term you want to use. However, there's one individual named Richard McClellan. This guy is a powerful man. He's been pulling strings for a long, long time, and he was really, him and John Engler were very, 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 very tight years ago as to whether, and oddly enough, he actually claimed at one time to be the creator of the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act because he worked for the same law firm, Dykema Gossett, that had wrote it, and then he started to take credit. Well, it was his law firm. I wrote the law. That was nonsense, but again, very much of an insider, very savvy, and he is on this part of this group of Republicans supporting Gretchen Whitmer. Why
Now-
would he do that? Well, he likes power, and he thinks that Gretchen is going to win. And Gretchen is no wild-eyed radical either. So
She's not a radical? You think that's-
I don't think she is. I mean,
she
she's
absolutely isn't.
I don't believe so, and I don't feel that,
Okay,
that there's
that's
an
fine.
intensive group that hate her. Now, some people hate Dana Nessel. All right,
Right.
that's a horse of a different
Right.
color, but not Gretchen.
Let's talk about it for a second. But let me ask you, but it is odd because Republican, like usually in politics, there's things you can usually kind of the Republicans not bad mouthing each other. That's usually an automatic. Very, very voted, and I think that's the strength of politics. But it's interesting that it would be based on the, we've talked about this in the past. He is a divisive guy. I opined at one point that the only reason the Supreme Court was so unified in some of these opinions was because it was less of a ruling on the particulars of the MMA as it was the significance of not letting the Attorney General's office influence the legislature and effectuate judicial outcomes. Too much power grab. And we got to put this to the end and really give the benefit of the doubt. And they made some good decisions. They were unanimous, but I always felt like that was part of it. Like there was this real push to snuff it out and whatnot.
Would you say there were more unanimous opinions in the Supreme Court than other
On these
crimes?
issues,
Yeah.
on the major issues, they've been pretty unanimous. Very little, But anyways, all right. So, Shooty divisive. I'm still amazed by Kelly made that thing. It's his last hurdle where he said Bill Shooty refused to. Everyone it's known. Like we say it. I've been talking about it for 9 years, 400 episodes or more. But at the end of the day, they themselves acknowledge that he was bad for the implementation of the MMA. I mean, it's. Where would you put Kelly in the party compared to Shooty? More central, obviously, or
Kelly, yeah, he, I would say, I'm not deeply impressed by him, to tell you the truth. I've met him a couple times. He seems like kind of a weak personality, frankly.
Sure.
And he's young, and he was handpicked by Snyder because Snyder, he knew Kelly would not give him any trouble, and in turn, he was to some degree set up to be, well, lieutenant governor and then governor. But he's not. When I met the guy, this is a true story. When I was up at the GOP leadership conference on Mackinac, there was this whole thing about whether Callie is going to announce or not, for governor. And, well, he didn't, but he had a special gathering at some bar. And Snyder walked in, and they had pictures were taken. And Kelly did nothing but play on the keyboard with his band. Now, I'm not making this up, okay? I mean, I was a little shocked. People were expecting to hear something substantive from the guy. But it wasn't. He's a fundamentally a weak personality. That's how I see it. And Michael, you brought up a point about, again, one of the other points of resentment that the party has, especially in the legislature, is when Schuette would try to interfere in the affairs of the legislature. They don't like that. These guys got big egos. Who are you?
Mm-hmm. He introduced a bunch of legislation. Remember, like 24 bills.
Yeah.
Like that really, fired up. We had a bunch of public hearings, people screaming and yelling, and they, a lot of people worked really hard behind the scenes, in front of the scenes. Right? It was, could have been a lot worse. Right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And of all the things that came out of it, because as much of whatever came out of it, the best argument was the legislature did not undo caregiving. They did not undo selling marijuana. Like all those things still existed. They reinforced the MA of this other stuff. All right, back to Gretchen and Dana. Now,
well, with Gretchen, let me throw in one other point, and it's getting to the Schuette thing. I do believe that Schuette is so loathed by some Republicans that they are either going to vote for Gretchen or they won't vote at all.
Yes.
And there's going to, of course, this massive Democrat turnout of all these new people. I don't think the man has a chance. And there will be Republicans that, like I say, either set it out or vote for Gretchen.
It's interesting because you do really have this chance to vote for marijuana and vote Bill Schuette out. Like those are two.
Yeah.
And vote Dana Nessel in.
Right.
It's a trifecta.
Of course. That's true. That is a trifecta. If there was three reasons that, would support everything that we've been pained about, for years of activism, the history of it all, it would be that. All right, so Tom Leonard, before we get to Dana, Tom Leonard, is he as loved as Schuette? I mean, isn't everyone pissed at him because he refused to put the ballot initiative before the legislature so they could control it? Is he not going to be despised?
No, he will not. The party will unite around him. He is quite a likable individual. He's competent. He's capable. Speaker of the House at a very young age. He has a very, compelling, life story. That they had this miracle baby that they weren't supposed to. It was never supposed to happen. And I actually saw the first evidence of a Leonard campaign. It's a billboard on I-131 on the west side of the state. And there's a picture with Leonard, his beautiful wife, and this sweet little baby. A strong leader from Michigan. And Michigan's families, you see. And, but again, he's never been offensive. He's been fair. And the fact of the matter is the Republicans didn't want to vote under any circumstances for marijuana. He did the right thing. There was no enthusiasm, in the House to take a vote on that. They'd rather just let the darn thing go to the voters. That was the creation of Arlen Meekoff and Rick Jones and some of these other, more cynical, type people.
Sure.
And that's what's happened. So, no, there's not going to be any blowback on that that I can see. And they will rally around Leonard.
And, of course, they're playing this card, this radical card a little bit we were talking a little bit about before the show. How far does that go, and is it enough to discourage voters from voting for Dana? I mean, are there enough independents that think or would contemplate these particular things that aren't already committed to vote against her? That's what I'm saying. I mean, are any of these things coming out going to look? There's people that are never going to vote for it because they're Republicans, right? There's people that are committed to voting for.
Right.
Who are the people that if we took a vote right now, you'd think she'd win, right? Because based on the turnout at the
well, that's what the polling numbers do indicate, and I was a little surprised that she had that type of lead. But then again, maybe not, because again, there's not too many people really know.
There were a lot of
one.
undecideds in that poll.
Yeah.
I think about 12%.
Yeah. But there's a lot of people that don't know who she really is. And,
Right.
and St. Leonard does not have any strong identity among the so-called, regular voters that, just maybe glancing here and there and on a radio commercial or what. So and they're trying to define her, as a radical, as a an unstable personality, someone who has poor judgment, someone that cannot be trusted to have that kind of power. Somebody will just go off the wall. And of course, they talk the code words that she hates men. Now, what do you think that means? Okay, well, it's a play to the homophobic, kind of crowd. My thinking, though, is that she's going to win. And I say that not because, historically speaking, whoever wins at the top of the ticket, i.e. the governor, if the governor wins by 10 points usually, then the attorney general and the secretary of state are swept into office, along with it. If it's going to be a close election by 1 or 2 points, Dana could lose. But I think the way, if these numbers continue to hold, and Gretchen, which it seems like she's going to win by a pretty good margin, then I think her coattails will take Dana into the brass ring.
Now, there's no campaigning going on right now. Do you see? I mean, you see them putting a lot of money in. Are they going to campaign down here? Is this an area?
Well, there actually, there is. I think I posted a thing to the listserv. I don't think it came through on TV, but no, the campaigns are rolling. She did her first TV commercial. In fact, it just came out like yesterday, and I thought it was very good, very, very good. And she just has a picture and sort of like a mugshot of Tom Leonard as being a tool of corporate interests and polluters and this kind of thing. And then she had a very benign, she just looked beautiful, and there was her 2 boys and a family person and so on. It was very, very, I thought it was very credible. And Leonard came out with a commercial, and I didn't bother to watch the Leonard commercial because it was sort of boilerplate, Republican economic stuff. It did not personally attack Dana. It stuck to the issues, basic bread and butter issues. They didn't, Do
you think he'll do that? Do you think he'll attack in those areas other than just code words and get a little?
The party's already attacking.
Well, the party does, but you think he's going to do that? Do you think he's going to say
Well, different
his
groups
mouth?
run ads for candidates.
I know.
Yeah, I don't think, I would be surprised if he did it himself. He would have surrogate personalities and PACs and things like that do the dirty work.
All right, so we're listening to episode number 399, Half Cocked. We're talking with Tim Beck right now. Just covered all you need to know about politics as it exists right now, and who's going to win. So if you're betting, I would follow the advice that's been given. Let's move on to some other topics that we like to talk about, such as cannabis, right? Medical cannabis. So as Tim walked in, it's been a week of a lot of stuff going on. We don't know where to start, but polling data that's coming out, Tim. I know Tim has maintained that this is never going to work. They're never going to get over the numbers unless you have at least 55% polling, which appeared to be the case before these polls. But the data has come out, and it says that it's not as high as we thought. It's in the 40s, and even suggesting that it's even Steven or even behind. What are your thoughts on that, Tim Beck? What's going on here?
I think that poll that recently came out showing us massively losing is a hoax, okay? And I say that for 2 very, very good reasons. Number one, I'm not privy to the numbers, but Josh Hovey and the CRMLA team, they're very, very into polling. And the most correct poll you're ever going to get is what's called an internal poll, when it's your own organization. You're not looking to propagandize. You want the truth. You want to know real numbers, and you do whatever it takes to find those real numbers. He says that their internal polling has indicated this 50s, low 60s, all the way. The other thing that makes this believable is the Detroit News and WDIV commissioned a poll. Now, the Detroit News is no fan. I mean, historically speaking, they have not been fans of marijuana or legalization or any of that.
Nor is WDIV.
Well, there you go. That's their affiliate. They're the corporate affiliate. They're both owned by the same media outfit. And they commissioned that poll, and this poll came out ironclad. It said 50% yes, 37% no, and 6%, undecided. And that means if those numbers are correct, if every undecided voter goes no, this thing wins by a blowout margin. It's a blowout win. And I don't see any reason why the Detroit News or WDIV would want to, put something like that out. I don't think there's any motive except here's the truth. This is the reality. That's my gut feeling. And again, I do believe Josh Hovey. I do not believe Josh Hovey is lying about their own internal polling. And, if you look at these ballot initiatives we've done over the years in these local cities, I mean, all over the place. Deborah, you were deeply involved, in Oakland County on that, and, and myself and Chuck and other people all over the state, for Christ's sake. Port Huron, Mount Pleasant, Lansing, Jackson, Berkeley, Pleasant Ridge, Oak Park, on and on and on, and Detroit, on and on and on. We've overwhelmingly won. We didn't spend one dime.
By 70% in quite a number of cities.
We did
And
65% Detroit.
I was going to say the smallest margin was, what was it? Berkeley, I think, by 53. So that was the smallest margin. Everything else was high 60s, 70%. So we know that this is
Well, Port
bullshit.
Huron, we won Port Huron with maybe by about 1 point.
That was a
close.
squeaker, yeah.
And Lapeer lost by
did.
6 votes.
By 6 votes. Even
by
if,
6
yeah.
votes.
By
And that's a
6
pretty
votes.
conservative
Yeah.
area out there.
But where
your
we
areas
won
around the
was
big
huge.
cities, yes.
And
yeah.
in Oakland County, and you have to look at where populations are concentrated too. So if you're pulling, with Oakland County being such a large population, you're pulling huge margins in Oakland County. I would have to think that this proposal is safe to win.
Yeah. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I really have tried to avoid that. And when I say that I think that this is a manipulated poll, I don't think it's a conspiracy theory, because when you think about it, why would they do something like that? One of the sponsors was government, GCSI, Government Consulting Services Incorporated. They're a big Lansing lobbying firm. And they got some major clients. One of them, I believe, is the Sheriff's Association. There's all kinds of groups that hate marijuana. And they also lobbied to basically, make what passed and signed by the government even more radically tilted, toward monopolies. And they were involved with MRC for a bit. See, what MRC, they broke up. They've been gone for many months. But those investors that were behind it still didn't lose their fervor. So they morphed on to companies like GCSI in order to obtain their objective. And what they did not want, this thing on the ballot. They wanted to run this in 2020, and they wanted to do it their way. And MPP, they invited them to the table. They said, F you, and they didn't want nothing to do with it. They could have had some perks, but they said, hell with it, we're not doing it. So they haven't gotten over that. So here's the deal. You do a flawed poll that's radical. What's the advantage? Well, the advantage is it does encourage the opposition. They think, oh my God, we can win. We're going to raise money now. We're going to get money to fight this. It also, even if the numbers are false, it still forces CRMLE to spend a ton of money, even if they don't have to, as a kind of punishment or whatever. And secondly, it puts doubt in the public mind. Psychologic says, geez, this looks like it's going to lose. I don't know, what's the use anymore? I don't know, what's the point of even voting? That kind of thing.
Especially if people are coming out just for this issue.
Yeah, and that's what it is. And again, the late Vladimir Ilyich Lenin had a saying. He said, I'm paraphrasing now, but if you have any question as to why some political thing is happening, some event, you can't figure it out, ask yourself, who does the action benefit? And that's a pretty good indication as to what's up and who's behind it. Now, who does it benefit? It benefits GCSI and its clients. Mears News, yeah, they're a great organization, but they like to stir the pot. They like to create news and get more people listening to them. And Target Insight, who the heck knows? The thing is so whacked out, but what the hell? They'll cash the check, So what?
Who's the benefactors if it doesn't pass directly? Other than law enforcement, like who's that news services?
It would be individuals that they're same people like, I'd say Donald Bailey, for instance, or Rick Johnson, or some of these guys that really want more of a monopolistic type of structure. They want it much more controlled, so the money goes in their pocket. They don't want people growing their own marijuana. Darn it. They want to get They want you to go right to the dispensary, get fingerprinted or whatever, and they want the monopoly, and then the cash all goes to them. They don't want anything that's going to hint of an illegal or black market or whatever. That's the deal. They want to impose their own, kind of thing. And
All right, that's a good transition here. So we've got medic. Oh, we're gonna take a break.
We got to take a quick break.
All right. You got some tunes to go. I'm still not loaded up over.
We'll see.
I can find something.
We'll see.
All right, we're listening. We've got listen. When I come back, I want to talk about just that. We've got licensing to the state, problems, no problems, extensions. We've got the polling on the legalization. We want to come back to, and we kind of were covering the same topics at that event, and I liked kind of some of the areas, and I want so we'll address some of that stuff too. Jim, what do you got over there? You got some one of my selections? Let me try some here.
We'll see. We'll see. Are you gonna go?
No, go.
All right.
Okay.
You're listening
So
to
we'll be right
Planet
back here.
Entries.
All right, we're back. James Taylor, choice by Jim. Episode number 399, Half Cocked. We're going to continue with our guest, Tim Beck. We left off at, we talked about one other stuff I want to talk about now. But we're at Tom Leonard. We were talking a little bit about the licensing. We'll come back to the Attorney General and some of that stuff. But, as Michigan moves forward, it's some really exciting times. We know with the last year, the state has moved forward, invested a lot of money and resources into developing a tax-based regulatory system for marijuana. People anticipate there's going to be like stores that have supplies of marijuana they can go into and buy for cannabis purposes. And it's really supposed
Doesn't
to be
that
the
already exist?
infrastructure for the legalization
For
around the
patients.
corner. But just on the
Patients.
medical marijuana, Tim, what do you think about what's happening right now? We see a lot of denials, a lot of applications, a lot of that are pending, a lot of seemingly unclear, maybe even capricious and suspicious reasons of why people are being denied. Is this what was intended by the legislature? Do you think this is political? Do you think it'll be different at any point in time, or do they have to scrap the whole program and start over?
Well, keep in mind, this was Bill. I would say if you're going to give credit to any one individual for getting that through, it's Rick Jones. This is Rick Jones's bill. And when our effort, it was a great plan, back in 2014, it failed. And that was it was because of Mike Bouchard and his cop pals, they sunk that one.
It's horrible.
Yeah, and so, Rick Jones, he's a pretty much of a law and order guy. He's a former sheriff for years, and he prefers regulation. And over time, he was actually converted to the fact that marijuana does have health benefits. He never believed that, but he heard enough from people that it convinced him that it was real. And so he said, wait a minute, we can't. He didn't like this caregiver system. He didn't like any of that stuff. So he decided we're going to have a regulatory model. We're going to have clean people in there. We're going to get rid of the crooks. And what he did, in fact, I even wrote I read a column for this MMM Report magazine. I even wrote about Jones. And because I know him pretty well, we have a cordial relationship. And what he did, he said the first thing that he did after things failed in 2014, he sat down with every cop in the world, and he was very patient with them. He was able to talk their language. He sat them down. You tell me what you guys want, to make it safe. And then, of course, they threw out the whole laundry list. And, well, it wasn't good enough for Mike Bouchard, but Michael, he lost that one. And Jones famously said, "Too late, Michael. It's over." And but you got to. It was basically created by law enforcement. So what they did, they put every bell and whistle in there to weed out bad apples. And of course, they made it very complex. And I mean, it's the equivalent of an anal exam. I mean, the tax reports and everything. I mean, the whole 9 yards. And that's why it is. And I think it's kind of a law of unintended consequences. The system they created was so complex and so rigorous that this is the result we get.
And it's difficult not just to get through, but it's limiting because not that many people actually qualify, and they're looking. Seemingly they're looking for reasons to find people not in now. There's a couple of issues that still remain, and I think some of these appeal processes are going to tell the story. But is a facility that's been open and operating under the emergency rules or by analogy, open before those rules went into play and maybe even deemed illegal by some state officers, are they going to be rewarded at the end of the day with medical marijuana licenses, or has this been a facade of this allowing people to operate?
Some of them will, but here's the thing that it was briefly posted on Safer. Nobody explained it, but it was the guy wants to remain anonymous. He's on the listserv, but he sent it out. But here's the thing: I was absolutely stunned, and he's in the pipeline, and now they have told him that they want all back taxes since 2011. I don't know if you know this. They want all back sales taxes of 2011 from anybody that cannot be traced as with a patient-caregiver relationship.
Now, how ridiculous is that?
Yes. I
and
mean,
how would you even achieve that?
Well, this is what they want.
Well, here's the thing.
And this was issued. This is a policy statement. It was posted, on Safer.
No, I read it. I
yeah,
saw it.
yeah. That's what this is about. Again, there is anger there. They especially with Donald Bailey and some of that board, and cops. Michael, they don't like people beating the system. Okay, they want their pound of flesh, and they're angry that these people have been quote unquote getting away with it for years. They've harvested all these so-called illegal profits. They've made all this money under the table, and we're going to get these bastards, by God, and they're going to pay up. And if they don't pay up, bam, you don't get a license, buddy. That'll teach you. That I'm convinced that is the mentality. I'm convinced that this is what is going on. I absolutely.
In terms of some of the licenses, it has gotten quite ridiculous. We have a lot of clients. Not only we've had some that have been approved, some are being denied for what seem to be ridiculous reasons, but the extension by which these applications have gone for the investigatory materials. It's not even that what might be on the list of things that have been posted now is ridiculous as this, but it's if they hear of anything, they're going to ask about it.
Yes.
I mean, I could tell you stories of how deep it goes, listening to 10 or 15-year-old recordings from a jail call from someone's, son that was in jail that they, some just weird deep stuff. But putting all that aside, the real question is, we know that this is not, it is what it is. It's a very highly regulated, overregulated system. The police wanted it this way. Their concerns are that it can't be done and to stop diversion and whatnot. Fine. But do you think any thought was given to how this new market is going to compete with the existing market? Okay. Because clearly, with what exists right now and with the likelihood of how many are going to be produced and the way this is going to go down, it's going to be very challenging to put cannabis on the shelves at a price point that is being done by the existing markets as we know it, which still under the emergency rules are generally caregiver, what the market is leveled it out at, to the facility that's on the shelves. Now, so I think that's a problem. But the police know this. Yeah. This is really the better question I want to ask. Do you think they did this because they know it will encourage a black market and it keeps them alive in the game? Because can these two markets exist? The caregiver-patient system. If a patient goes into a store and it costs, $600 for an ounce, and the caregiver that they have done is, whatever, $200, whatever the market is, and has developed after 9 years, right, as a true organic market. What is going to encourage them to continue going back to that place?
I would say it already that the dual market already exists, because dispensaries, some of them are. I know they're making good money. They're doing fine, and people, patients and so on.
Well,
they may not have a caregiver. It's easier to just go to a dispensary. And I know what I'm about to say is probably heresy. I know some people aren't going to like it, okay? But that said, I think there's a good amount of so-called recreational users that are carrying patient cards, okay? It's a jail-free card.
Fine.
Okay? And they rather just go,
fine. But this is what I'm saying. And let's assume that to be true. But you still got 300, 400,000 people maybe, that have cards. My question is just looking at the medical market.
Yeah.
They may have a caregiver. I would agree. Now,
some of them don't. A lot of them don't. And again, what's happened is we all know.
Well, they have a card. They have a card.
Yeah, a card. Okay,
That's
there
right,
you go.
okay.
Okay,
but
yeah,
my point is, what still, if they're buying marijuana now,
Right.
they're paying what they've known to be the market price. My question
Right.
is, still they're going to dispensary. I agree they may not have a caregiver, but still the price is around a range that is either, that's equivalent to what it costs to have a retail place, right? You get them a caregiver, you get a store with a fancy, package, it's going to cost you more,
Right.
fine. But it's certainly not the price that it's going to be if you have a, processor, a transporter, mandatory
Right.
testing, in
Right.
retail with no
Right.
tax write-offs.
Right.
So I'm saying,
Right.
so what's going to keep them going to that store and not want the marijuana at the price that they got that was produced by the caregiver? Really, not directly through their hands, but buying it selected by the owner, and you know what I mean? So that, to me,
Yeah.
is the battle.
Yeah,
Right?
I think the only thing that's going to the only countermeasure to that is going to be legalization. It's going to open up a vast new market.
Why are they complaining
And-
about it then,
and-
those police officers? You know what I mean? Like, it would make sense. I know, that's another story. We can come back to that, and I want to hit
You
that
know who I
point by
think
point.
has something to say about this? Jamie Lowell. I think he probably has a little something to say.
It's up to Tim. So we can let Tim have Jimmy Lowell time for Tim from Tim's
Yeah.
segment.
Jamie, are you there?
Jamie's got something to say, I'm sure.
I'm here.
There he is.
Jamie Lowell.
Jamie may have taken
Hello,
on.
everybody.
Jamie, did you take on some law enforcement folks at some event today and debated the legalization issue?
Well, I attended the event, and I did offer up information on Prop 1 and some other things, but the officer did not show up because of the structure of the event put on by a candidate, and they have policy not to have city people show up at these events to give the appearance that they may be in support of the candidate.
I
So
see.
the police officer did not show up.
Okay.
But it seemed to be pretty reasonable. I mean, kind of communicated some things through the organizers, and it seems like it would have been more of a reasonable conversation than having to argue the Rocky Mountain report or anything like that. So,
Right.
but it was a pretty cool scenario. I mean, Roger Beaupart was there, so he made my job pretty easy. He was ready to go with all the facts and figures of every conceivable study. And
Well,
all
let's
that
just
kind of stuff. It was pretty- it was-
so those that don't know, Jamie attended an event that addressed the legalization issue in Munson,
Yeah.
like near Jackson, Michigan. Is that right?
Leone Township.
Leone Township. Okay. And Roger Mulford, one of the guys
Right
from
outside Jack.
Jackson, Compassion Club for a long time, and advocate and well-spoken, well-educated. You said he was there as well. And do you get a lot of positive feedback, or what do you think is going to happen in Jackson?
Yeah. There was no negativity. Leone Jackson itself, the city has not opted in, although there is a lot of support there, and there were some residents from Jackson there tonight. They seem to feel as though it's a matter of time, that one way or another, they will get Jackson involved. But Leone itself, budding Jackson, the township, has opted in and has decided to allow for several licenses and several different kinds of activity. So the people there were used to the discussion. I mean, yes, it was an expansion into legalization, but
All
there
right, so
was no real opposition.
all right, so I was mistaken. It was more about whether they were going to opt in. All right, so but let's talk about this because Tim, please, this brings Tim back in, and of course we've got all of our treat marijuana, like alcohol. The opponent is now drawn blood, right? I mean, they're clearly out there. They've propaganda.
Can I just say something? Fuck them.
Okay, let's do it. Yeah, I agree, and let's do it through.
Well, they're
pen-
making
the
a
pen-
they're making a full court press. I mean, they're starting, the action. They're starting to get active. Let's put it
All right.
that way.
So let's see. So, what are some of the questions and answers we go through this? I think there's so much. What will this proposal? This proposal will not. This is some of the propaganda stuff that comes with, and I'm speaking about the decreed opponent. They've labeled themselves as such, healthy and productive Michigan.
And let me tell you, Scott Greenlee looks like a pretty healthy and productive guy,
Yeah,
doesn't
he's
he?
definitely
Is that
been
the
eating
younger
well.
guy?
No,
Healthy and productive.
Is the younger guy?
he's
Who's
the one
Scott
without
Greenlee?
the facial hair.
Yeah.
The one that looks like Humpty Dumpty without the facial hair.
the ballot
That's
initiative.
cheap.
He was the one to my left, and
Oh, yeah.
Massey was to my
Oh,
right.
yeah, right. Here you go. The and some of the what's his face? The guy from the former senator signed up as the lead, one of the lead consultants and
Oh yeah,
propagandist.
Randy Richardville.
Randy Richardville. You know, at least he's a pro. you
Remember
know?
him, Tim?
All right, here you go. The ballot initiative does not address possible dangers, additives to marijuana cigarettes.
Additives like tar and
This
nicotine?
ballot initiative does not prohibit marijuana and alcohol sales and consumption in the same place of business.
Oh.
Further raises concerns about car crashes and fatalities, given the potential for drugged and drunk driving.
Oh.
Let me just name a couple as you come back. Ballot initiative does not allow citizens to FOIA information to discover who owns, operates, and grow establishments, even if the business creates a public nuisance. I don't know if that's true.
That's not true.
Yeah, that doesn't
The
make any
ballot
sense.
initiative does not allow marijuana use addiction to be used as a factor in determining child custody. Who said it should? Its use.
It
there's no such-
mirrors the language in the MMMA, which is you have to be able to clearly articulate a reason.
Right. It can't be just the use.
And
itself,
it could
right,
be
but-
you're addicted to a
That's-
substance. I don't know how they would argue the addiction to marijuana, but I would say that
I heard that argument.
if-
It's called he's got a controlled substance problem. Why? Because he uses marijuana. What do you mean?
then
He
it's-
uses marijuana.
then
What do
it-
you mean? What's
then
a
it's
controlled
the
substance?
judge deciding
you ever
if that's a
seen him
clearly
have
articulated
No.
reason.
Do you know what marijuana is? No. Why do you say he's got a controlled substance? Because he's a medical marijuana patient. What do you mean? I don't know. Like that's what it is.
that's not clearly articulated.
Anyways, listen. So none of this is a thing, right? So let's go to some of the other
Next.
brilliant.
But it says here that there's 6 people in jail in the entire
In the
state.
Six
entire
whole
state
people.
of Michigan.
6 whole people.
Although we also saw that 9% of all arrests are marijuana arrests in the state, so there must only be several
20,000
arrests. Of,
6
yeah,
people.
and you know what? When
6
you get
people,
arrested for marijuana, you
24,000.
definitely don't get taken to jail.
never.
I've never seen
Never.
that happen.
Well, I
ever.
know at least 6 people in jail right now, so I don't understand this statistic at all.
What the heck? It's the propaganda machine.
All
It's
six,
just it's
every one of them.
laughable, and I think you have to really take it for what it is and look at it in that light because people aren't going to believe this shit.
No.
The normal person knows there's more than 6 people in jail right now.
But when the
for
cop is
marijuana.
standing there saying that, but a lot of people are
I
like,
don't
"Oh,
know.
well, that's the credible police officer. It must
maybe.
be
Did they say
true."
that? Did they say
Some
that?
of them, some
They
of
did not
them,
say that.
some
People
of them
say
do.
that.
Some
All
of
right.
them do.
Cities-
I don't think
Here's a good true or false. Cities have to opt out.
that's not true.
Of course
They have to
not.
opt in.
This has never been an opt out.
It's just
It's
like-
not a statewide. In fact, the only reason why some of this stuff passed both for the legislature was the idea, Tim. Right? It's a common
Yeah.
legislative tool.
It was
Like
mirrored
you can't
after.
get.
When they wrote it, that was the entire
right.
point.
Right.
Is people are comfortable with this model.
Truth is irrelevant to these people.
Yes.
That's the fact, and it's scare stuff, and yeah, gullible people. There's going to be some gullible people, that believe that. But if they're that gullible, I mean, they wouldn't vote for this thing anyway.
Right.
Right.
There-
How I
yeah,
look
I
at it, it's a
agree. There's a
circular
certain
logic.
group of people that we're never going to convince, and
And
that's
that's
who
all
they're
right.
singing to. So
That's all right.
How will law enforcement make sure users follow the law? It'll be very challenging for law enforcement as there's not a reliable impairment test in the instance of impaired driving. Law enforcement will also have to have the obstacles of enforcing personal possession limits of marijuana and underage sales and distribution of marijuana, as well as marijuana in the school system.
You mean writing a ticket?
In other words, they don't have to do any of this, really.
That's
So
what they
let's
do.
talk
They
about-
write. They write
Let's
the
talk
ticket.
about this. This is really the there's not a reliable impairment test. True, but if for some reason they draw someone's blood and you have 1 nanogram of marijuana,
Well, there's not. There's not.
listen to me.
Yeah.
It's still a crime. They get you for that did not change.
No, it
The
didn't.
law
No,
in
it did
Michigan
not
is
change.
Jim, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do.
Current existing zero tolerance.
Yeah, well, it's a kind of funny thing. I was, this is a few years back, and I was sitting on the porch with Rick Jones. And we were sipping some cocktails and talking, and spent a lot of time together. And he's been a cop for years. And I said, well, Rick, I mean, come on, you talk about a lack of, a test for marijuana and this and that, but don't you remember when the blood alcohol level was 0.15? Yeah, that was the legal limit, and there were no breathalyzers around, so what did you guys do? I mean, yeah, if a guy was driving erratic and he was slurring his speech and, acting drunk, yeah, you'd have the right to arrest him, take him to the station, and you would do a blood test. And that was the standard at that point. And I mean, would you say it wasn't that effective? I mean, couldn't basic. Well, yeah, and then he kind of agreed to that. And well, but then again, he kind of went the thing that well, technology, yeah, that's helpful. But the point is, they never even had that for alcohol for years and years and years. And yeah, so
the technology became better for, enforcing it, and.
Well,
but I tried to ask him, what is the deal? I mean, can't you use? Okay, or let's concede. I'm going to concede to you that no, there is no so-called reliable test that is going to prove impairment on marijuana.
There isn't one for alcohol. I mean, really. I mean, you're an attorney, Michael. I've read a whole lot about the data master, and I'll tell you what, to take that same technology and, well, not the same technology, but the same philosophy and implement a per se limit is unfair. It's unfair. There are people that are medical patients that can operate in their daily lives just fine and can drive a vehicle on very high amounts of THC. And what should happen is the police should have to do exactly what you just said, Tim. They should say, I observed poor driving. It was consistent with someone that's under the influence of marijuana. And then they would have to get a blood draw, and then they would have to convince either a judge or a jury or however that case becomes resolved that they were not under the influence of marijuana and it didn't contribute to their bad driving.
All right, let me address a couple things, because this is a hot topic. People don't know how to address this issue. I think getting blood only helps if it becomes meaningful, right? If there's a level that has no rational connection to
Right, because
some
currently,
kind of outcome.
even a nanogram.
Well, that's
you're
different.
impaired, but
right,
that's
but we're talking about the existing law.
the existing law.
Is if they get 1 nanogram,
Yeah.
whether you're driving like a prudent driver
Zero
or not.
tolerance.
Could have been floating in your
well,
system for 30
well, that's
days.
for a recreational user.
Right,
if
right,
you're medical,
right,
they
right.
got to prove.
But I'm saying if they change the law tomorrow and it's recreational,
Right.
that's the law in the books.
Yes.
Right.
So they have zero tolerance.
Right. That's
So any
exactly
adult
correct.
sees smoking in a bar or comes out buys some marijuana,
Well, you could smoke it
they
last
can pull
week
them over,
also.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
And they're gonna have some. Okay, so the inherent problems with the.
Well, the 2-week thing is a fallacy.
No, it's not, and I'll tell
It
you
is.
why.
It's a fallacy.
Listen. Let me just give you a couple points. First of all, the issues around marijuana and alcohol, and you said the breathalyzer. I agree. There's all kinds of problems with the breathalyzer, but it has been vetted to the extent that its accuracy has been established. A error rate that is within the accepted, scientific community. Where if they repeat it, someone take a test over and over and over again of this machine, that machine, using this technology, they're going to get the result. Whatever. Okay, now whether those numbers reflect on someone else is another story, but the worst part of it is they've been effective in their ability to make it more than just folklore. You ever talk to someone, they say, would you blow on the breath and say 0.27? They say, shit, you were really fucking drunk. They have no idea what that means, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The number speaks to something. Now, it could be they had blood in their mouth. They got GERDs, which is a disease that causes like air to flow to your stomach. It's not the same measurement of the air that comes out of your lungs. All kinds of things. Fluid in the mouth. There's these procedures. The machine's got to be calibrated. Trust me. But when you go to trial and these jurors are told around the instructions that you must presume this to be accurate. Starts with the presumption is accurate, and you're fighting, the whole. So I've been. So it's effective in that the police telling their story and how they do their shit is number one. Number two is that the law as it's read is understood to mean something, even though people really have no idea what the underlying circumstance. Now, do we think that if, someone gets pulled over, they blow a 2.7, and they're a good drunk, let's say, what I mean, because I think it's true.
I think when you're at those higher levels, the ambiguity kind of removes
Fine.
itself. But at lower levels, and I think the same is true with marijuana to some extent. But if we flip the argument. If you're talking about a medical patient that consumes a gram of marijuana a day.
What I want to do is listen. I want to say this. I think there is data that the human body interacts with alcohol in a way that has been able to be measured to a certain degree with the way it absorbs into your system. There's a absorbs in. They can do an extrapolation how long it takes to get out.
Yep.
They can put none of this regarding marijuana. That's the difference I'm trying to make.
Right.
There is some, and it's not a Schedule 1. They can put people, get them drunk. They can inject them with alcohol. They can drive. Oh, that's, they've done all that. Now, returning to marijuana, they cannot even come close to it. There's no number. There's no per se number, and the most neutral of folks, AAA insurance,
Yeah.
said,
Say
they
exactly
said
that.
you can't.
Yeah.
Now here's the problem. What do we do? Because we don't want to give. It's an area that is going to be fought over.
Yeah.
It's an area of freedom that the police want to be able to.
Yeah.
So we need an answer.
Let me share something that Rick Jones told me in that conversation. And he said he personally does not believe that marijuana in and of itself really causes dangerous driving. He actually said that. He said the problem he sees is that the mixture of marijuana and alcohol is the big kahuna. That's his strong belief. I'm just repeating
Sure.
What he said.
Sure.
But he's told me himself. I don't think he'd ever, but it was it wasn't on what the hell. I mean, that's what he told me. He said he didn't think marijuana itself was that bad.
Which in a way could be said. The real problem is the alcohol.
Yeah.
And driving.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it, and there's going to be some. I mean, it goes without saying. I had this conversation with this prosecutor. Whatever, we were just trying to. A lot of these guys now are. I didn't go to law school to prosecute marijuana cases. Blah blah blah. I'm not Elliot Ness. No. But it's the same. Not the same. It's so much THC. It's not the Woodstock marijuana, right? Number two, we got to come up with something about driving. It's going to be dangerous. There's all this evidence of driving. You know what? Let me say this. I don't know that it's going to change that much, right? I mean, I think the best argument is look at people are driving around with marijuana in their system now.
Yeah.
It's a fact.
Yeah.
And if it was such a fucking problem, we would know and be able to articulate it.
Yeah.
I mean, what's going to be the bend when they actually legalize it? So you get some people that are going to buy it that they would not normally have. They get a little bit of that kind of stuff. They're going to be out of position. You guys, like people, like a lot of the drunk driving cases are coming home from opening day, from a wedding. You know what I mean? It's not the guys that are generally girls that are drink. They don't want to drive and drink. They're not going to fucking be out of position. They're going to drive. It's usually something that's just like they haven't done it. It's like
right.
So there's going to be some of that stuff. But don't tell me that same with pregnancy and CPS and stuff. Like people are, it's part of the woodwork. And if there was a way for them to show, like, kids being born with the byproduct metabolite of, who even knows if the THC, and they could show some, they would, and it'd be over. They'd have a reason, but it doesn't exist. Like, it's a lot of hoopla that is, and that's what pisses me off about the police officers. Tim, what are we going to do about that? The people in the western part of the state, you got prosecutors, you got community leaders. I mean,
Well, all I can say, again, is thank God.
where's Jamie? Did we lose him?
No, he should still be
Jamie,
there.
you still there?
I'm sorry. I fucking lost it there, Jamie.
I think he's gone.
Jamie.
Come back. Tim, go ahead, sorry.
Well, all I can say is thank God, Western Michigan and those rural areas, well, they don't have a lot of people. And the election is going to be decided in urban areas. It's going to be decided in southeast Michigan.
Yep.
And places like, Flint, Lansing. Your bigger cities are fine. We did an experiment when we ran all these ballot initiatives. And the only, outside of Lapeer, which we lost by 6 votes, we were overwhelmingly defeated in places like Clare and Frankfurt. A couple others, Harrison, I believe.
Very small rural towns.
Small rural
with
towns.
no local involvement.
Onaway.
Really. Is that
There's
Onaway, there
Jamie
you go.
Lowell.
There you
Onaway,
go.
There he is.
Yeah. We lost big. It was not even close.
There's
in
no
those
electoral
places.
college though in Michigan, right?
No.
It's by the
Yeah, it's
Pure-
one man, one
yeah.
vote.
it's the the popular vote.
Yep.
So, as you said, the turnout in some of these towns where like Wayne County, which has got the biggest population, biggest
Yeah.
county, right? And
Yeah.
2 would be what was Oakland.
And
Oakland.
Detroit, for God's sake.
Just
I mean,
the whole metro area.
yeah.
If everyone shows up, if they get a 60% turnout,
Yeah.
you care, right? I mean, which is
No,
unheard of,
doesn't
right? So-
matter. That's right.
yeah.
Yeah, that's right. It's going to be decided in the population centers. Really, I don't think he's going to win in Midland. Okay, but that's about the only
But if he
place.
wins,
yeah,
I mean, Macomb County would probably be a swinger too. Jim, you're going to the winner. This whole thing's going to be on you again.
Yeah,
Jim's in charge of Macomb County.
Not
What do you say about
comfortable with
Macomb?
that. I
I'm
think
not comfortable with that.
I think
Breaking news: the
Well,
election's about to swing, and it's
no.
all because of Macomb County. The nation is looking to Macomb. What's going on over there, Jim? Tell us.
it depends.
Remember that?
Are we talking North Macomb or South Macomb?
I'm talking election night. What's going on in Macomb? I remember that.
You know what? I think overall, I think that people need to be really careful about how comfortable they get with this thing passing. I really do.
I kind of feel that way too.
Because
after I watched Rachel Maddow tell me one night that all the red states are purple, I don't believe anything I hear anymore. Like it's over. Like I was sold that bill of goods. I'm done with that. Right? Come on.
Purple.
I watched it. She said it's over. It's over.
Macomb
The
County's
the
not.
purple, whatever,
Macomb
the
County's
wave.
not purple. We're blue. We're blue. But
Are
we,
you?
we just
Are you
we
now?
just fucked up. We fucked
Did
up.
you?
Yeah, big time.
Jim is a beacon of light in the
Yeah.
area.
I mean, I didn't fuck up. I want
North
to be
or
clear
out
about
south,
that.
Jim?
I'm
East or
South
west?
Macomb. That's
What do
we're
you think about that,
hardcore
Tim?
blue in the South.
Is this
Macomb.
going to be? I mean, what does the Trump factor have to do with this year's election in Michigan?
Well, all I can say, there's been numerous polling have done with hardcore Trump supporters, and they're not typical Republicans. They're a little different. But the Trump folks split 50-50 on marijuana.
Yeah.
That's where they're at. Where hardcore self-identified Republicans are lower, in the 40% range. The Trump voters are actually higher. The true serious ones.
But if you think, Tim, about what you just said about the local initiatives and where they passed and where they failed.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when Trump and Clinton were campaigning, and I drive around the state of Michigan quite a bit for work, and I can tell you that in the urban areas you would see plenty of Hillary Clinton signs, but in those outlying areas, all you saw was Donald Trump, and those people believed it.
Yeah.
And if we look and say, okay, those rural people are all voting for Donald Trump, it's no wonder that the initiatives just tanked.
I'm interested in this, Tim. The Republican Party, aren't they dealing with some dilemmas? I mean, I don't know, and I don't want to be presumptuous, but you got Trump. You got people that are probably uncomfortable a little bit. Some people are just going with the party. What impact and what is a Republican doing in Michigan now to get elected? Are they embracing Trump? Are they getting separate from Trump? How does Trump affect?
No, they're sticking with Trump. They don't dare deviate from. You take on Trump, that's the kiss of death. You're not going to win, and especially in a primary. And they've already staked out their position in the primary.
for the general, for the statewide, I'm saying, does Tom Leonard say, I'm with Trump and I'm going to govern, if I'm Attorney General?
Some of them are. Who's this guy who's running against Debbie Stabenow? He's out there saying, I'm with Trump, and Trump is me, and we are there. And I've got to tell
That's
you,
all
I
Bill
was up
Schuette
north,
talks
and I
about.
saw his
Schuette does
campaign
that.
signs everywhere.
Schuette's going to do that. I see that.
He's already been.
They're all going to do that. They
But is
don't
Leonard
dare
like
do
that,
that.
though?
Yeah.
He is?
Oh, yeah. He's going to do it for his own survival. I mean, he may
they
not
all
like
will.
Trump, but if he takes on Trump, he's in trouble. They're going to
Is
hate
it
him. These
still
people
like
are very
that?
impassioned.
Is the party
Yeah.
like the core republic? Like of the party and the representatives. Are they not split on like some other direction of the republic? Or are they all still behind Trump? In Michigan, what do you think?
They're about saving their own rear ends and getting reelected.
Well,
That's
but what about
the
the people
whole-
that
yeah.
the people that voted the convention? Like pick that group. Those are delegates that have been elected to be.
Oh, they're
delegates.
hardcore Trump.
Really?
And they're very social conservative, yes. They're the
They
fanatics.
can't find somebody else. There's not
Well,
another direction to go.
I'm just saying there's nothing. He's the president, and some people like his attitude. They like Trump
A lot of
because
people
he's so sassy and just mean, and they hate elitists, like AKA Hillary Clinton and
I get
people
that.
like that. Yeah.
But of all the people, I mean, there's been some things that I think have been, I don't know. There's a lack of civility. You know what I'm saying? It seems to be a lack of civility. I don't know whose fault it is.
Yeah.
You can throw blame around. I don't know. I think the Republicans tried to be that. They've kind of tried. They always whether they bear stuff down your face or not. They But some of this stuff has just been outside of the. I mean, I could complain a lot.
Yeah.
I don't want to be.
Well, getting to the marijuana
Yeah,
situation, I think marijuana is going to stand on its own as its own issue. I mean, there are Republicans that are favorable to it. Maybe not. Maybe not not
Is it
necessarily a
enough to
majority, but see, coupled with the heavy Democrat turnout That's what I'm saying. Heavy independent turnout, heavy progressive turnout, and heavy young person turnout. This is critical. And I think I sent a thing to the listserv about, it was a thing from Mears, and they were doing a study. The young people turned out in record numbers in August. I mean, it's huge, just unprecedented. There is absolutely no reason to doubt that that's not going to happen again in November. So that is the key. It's whatever demographic cohort, turns out.
Right.
And if we get our people, and I'm saying this is going to, I don't care what these preachers in Detroit, think and say, Detroit is going to pass this overwhelmingly.
Yeah, and Republicans normally don't sit out elections, so there's no big get out the vote movement on that side because they get out the vote.
Yeah,
so,
but there's a divide in the Republican Party for.
Yeah, but they're still they
Let's
come
go down
out
the
they
list,
come out
Tim.
in fairly consistent.
How many Tim Becks are there in the Republican Party that are going to vote like this for legalizing marijuana?
I know two, Tim and my husband Dave.
Okay, well, I'm saying like,
Well, I know.
if you know what I'm saying.
Well,
like,
there's quite a few of them. I mean, they don't talk about it.
Yeah.
That's fine.
I've met a few.
How many are going to jump ship and vote for Dana Nessel?
There's a Free Press had an article today about a bunch of Republicans supporting Gretchen Whitmer.
Yes.
Right.
Well, that was we were talking about
we
that earlier.
talked
That was
about
the
that earlier.
business community that was disappointed with Bill Schuette endorsement and wanted them to retract that or whatnot.
Well,
Right.
Richard McClellan was one of them. You know that name, Jamie, I'm sure.
And Bill Milliken Jr.
Yeah, Milliken Jr.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dennis Shornack is definitely a Dana supporter.
Yeah, he wasn't on the
I know he
list.
does not like Bill Schuette, but
Yeah.
he could potentially be voting for the Libertarian candidate. I haven't really discussed it with him, but he does support Dana Nessel for sure.
No Republican is going to talk about supporting Dana Nessel. If I may be clear, we all know Ryan Baser, and Ryan, he gets around. He's a very, very, very smart guy, and his family has always been traditionally Republican, and all of his friends. And he was just telling me again, it's purely anecdotal, but he said there's a lot of Republicans out there that are going to vote for Dana. That will vote for
I
it,
think
'cause
so.
they're sick
There's a lot of
vote.
Republicans in the cannabis community, and they're all certainly going to vote for her.
The
Yeah.
fundraiser of Republicans that normally donate to Republicans, but they don't prefer the choices. It's drawing from the same tired ilk that's
And I would say,
run its course.
I'd say the convention, a lot of the people that came from the west side of the state, they probably would have never, they would not have done it but for the cannabis, right? Like the other issues that Dana would stand for may not be something they would even care about.
right.
Am I right?
Or they care about, but not enough to
Right.
impassion them
And
to come
certainly
out.
not switch parties,
Right.
right? So that's what I'm saying. Like there's a real, so I mean I agree. Like it's a real, it's
Well, Tom Leonard, he told me, and I had this one. It was a one-on-one with him at Mackinac. You go to a thing like that, you can talk to anybody. That's the magic of it. And I talked for about a half hour with him, just sort of privately about the cannabis issue and everything like that. He said he was definitely in favor of medical. He danced around legalization, okay, but he kind of smoothly inserted the idea that if he was for legalization, he could never get the nomination. At the party convention. The party convention is the fanatics. 25% are evangelical Christians. These are people that are really, really hardcore.
And evangelical Christians, Tim, we should say, by religious edict, do not accept medical marijuana, and they do not accept legal marijuana under any circumstances.
It's like out in Utah with the Mormon Church.
As a religious
No
belief.
alcohol,
We've
no
learned this,
tobacco,
that
none
some
of
of these, like Bethany Christian Services, their edict of belief that their flock signs up for, amongst other things, swears off marijuana for any reasons. Is a religious fundamental part of a fundamental religious belief.
Well, Kevin Sabat is a member of the Baha'i religion. The Baha'i religion is any type of mind-altering, so-called mind-altering, drug or anything like that, including cigarettes, alcohol, whatever. They're very, very virulent. Yeah, well, Mormons don't drink coffee. I don't know about Baha'i, but Baha'i, I mean, that they are very, very stringent about that. And some people wonder, well, what motivates Kevin Sabat, Dr. Sabat or whatever?
What a waste of a name.
I'm sorry? Well,
what a waste of the name for an organization.
Yeah.
that doesn't allow any indoctrination.
Yeah. Yeah, well, again, but with this guy, the only conclusion I can come to is there's a religious motivation. There's no evidence to seem that man is getting rich. He seems to be doing it for some kind of altruistic reasons or whatever, or I would say religious reasons. That would be the only thing that makes any sense to me. And it's the same ditto for a lot of other evangelical Christians in America and people in the Mormon Church. And on and on. And those people, they have a big tail that they wag in the GOP conventions in Michigan.
Is he not supported by some organization paid to fly over and spew the crap that he talks about? Or is he just doing this on his own dime and some church money?
Sabbath? I'm not sure. Well, he's got that Kennedy, that's his buddy, but I honestly don't know the answer to that, Michael. They don't seem to have a lot of money. I mean, they're probably going to be able to come up.
Some people suppose they're backed by pharmaceutical companies or shills. But, I don't know.
Is he their guy, though?
No, I don't think.
Here's an article from Vice about just this topic. It says the largest donors to the various anti-weed political groups around the country include a billionaire casino tycoon, a woman who believes in reefer madness, a drug-crusading former U.S. ambassador, cops, prison guards, booze merchants, and a pharma company that sells the powerful painkiller fentanyl.
Imagine that.
Yeah, that's accurate. Well, Sheldon Adelson is and there's just some woman in Florida, and all that. They've got some pretty deep pockets, but again, I think you were there was a kind of summit. I know, Jamie, you were there. It was at Ulm of Medicine, and that Congressman Blumenauer came in, and we were talking about Sheldon Adelson. We were all these what-if scenarios in Michigan. And what if somebody like Sheldon Adelson comes in and dumps, $10 million or, something like that? And his belief was that Sheldon Adelson has basically lost every time, except I think he maybe put a little money into Arizona, but his main state, Nevada, he lost. And the idea was he's not going to waste his money anymore. And I guess apparently with the Adelsons, they had some kid. One of their kids got, hooked on drugs or something like that. And
it's another fanatics.
Yeah. And that was the motivation. But again, I did an interview. It's going to come out with Josh Hovey for the magazine. I'll give you a little tidbit. Josh Hovey was the main person that I interviewed. And, and he was telling me, I was asking about TV. And he said they were not making any decision at this point, that they got the money about doing TV. I'm thinking that with the way things are going, they might want to do TV. Okay, now that was a moment in time, but I mean, again, we'll see. I do have, like I say, this is not happy news. This poll, believe me. I tend to doubt it. I think at core, intellectually, that it's just it's a kind of con game that's being perpetrated. Again, as a way of defeating it. Are those numbers really true? I have my serious doubts that they are true.
Maybe they polled themselves only. They
it was
polled
an auto poll. It was an auto poll. It was a robot poll. And generally, those things only go to people with landlines.
Sure, landlines, and nobody really has a landline. They must have really had to scrape hard to find folks at home with landlines.
Yeah, I always had one in Detroit, and it was great. I mean, I liked taking polls. I didn't mind. It was no big deal. But since I moved out to Grand Junction, we were able to get a landline.
Can't get a signal out there.
Yeah. I've never been polled in going on 4 years since I moved out there. I'm just off the grid.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. Who are they polling? And you have to consider who's got a landline. And it's basically elderly people or, people who are not real savvy.
Like my mom and dad,
Right.
they're and a lot of those folks, they're not into technology and they're just comfortable with the way it is. And
I'm surprised they're able to keep people on the phone because they read them the whole proposal. That's what the claim
Yeah.
is. That
No,
this
it
is
wasn't the
polling.
proposal.
No, it was a robot.
The ballot language.
the ballot
language.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
They read them the ballot language. So it's hard to engage somebody on the phone for more than a couple seconds on
Right.
something like this. So
Well, this was
really people
this
on
was
the
a
phone.
robot, and
Yeah.
again, my inclination, if the robot reaches somebody that hates marijuana, they're probably going to want to answer the poll.
Yeah.
And somebody that likes it, I mean, it's like how do you do a poll in Detroit on marijuana? All right, if you listen to some of these preachers and authority figures, like way back when, Conway Kilpatrick and all these characters, oh my God, do you think it was going to go go straight to hell. It's going to be right down the toilet. But in the quiet, and no, I mean, again, this is anecdotal, but all the black folks that I know, I mean, they were very, very careful. Well, no, marijuana, gee, I mean, I don't know about that. Yeah, and there's always, if you interact personally, no, you're not going to get any favorable. They don't want to talk about, but in the privacy of the voting booth, what the hell? Medical won 59%. This is back in 2004. Recreational won in 2012 was 65%. And oh, by the way, medical in 08, when it was on the statewide ballot, won 74% in Detroit. And why is that? Again, I did a story about this. Lamar Lemons, he's a political boss in Detroit. I worked with him quite a bit, and his organization gathered signatures for me. And he said, look, black folks are not fooled. They're going to vote yes on marijuana every time because they know that it's a tool of oppression that's being used on black folks. And even that ballot initiative, because of that was sponsored to try to change that dispensary situation, that one. There was no ever. I mean, it's just right out there. And what Lamar said, he said that black folks, every time you can count on black folks to vote yes because they know the game. It's just a bunch of crap. So
it's kind of distressing, isn't it? Because even the politicians that, I know Tim from the perspective that the Republicans had an honest debate about this. The idea of doing something about the ballot initiative, their decisions, whatever was, at least it was vetted, and addressing it. The police, on the other hand, are not really contemplating it. They're coming out against it. They're decreeing it negative. They're not acknowledging that voters may want it.
No.
This troubles me. The proffering of, intellectually dishonest materials, creating fear. I mean.
This is politics.
It's not.
This is
it's
nothing
interesting,
new.
though. It's interesting, though. Let's talk about a couple of factors. Michigan ranked 48th in transparency or, lack of integrity. Did you see that?
Yep.
We've, the statistics speak to it. The statistics speak. Let me give you a couple of statistics here. We got violation of the Controlled Substance Act, number of victims, offenses reported, and incidents and clearance rate. So you've got a 74% conviction rate for controlled substances on the increase since the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act passed. And there's no other crime that is of any significance that finds itself above 25% arrest, except for motor vehicle theft, which is a federally funded task force that works out of Wayne County. But the point is, where are our resources? And the other problem is with all the complaining, and if you listen to, and I'd like to really address them point by point. I don't know if we're gonna have time, but maybe on another show we'll go over some of the nonsense, the references, some of these, doesn't legalizing recreational marijuana contribute to freedom? Not when a market is emerging that is profiting from addiction and making products that are targeted our youth. That is a public health problem. So
you don't see any irony in that.
Of course, it's outrageous. I mean, I like to break some of this down.
But they acknowledge that addiction is a public health problem. I think that's incredibly ironic.
And they're policing it, and they don't do anything about it, of course. And they want to police it more. See, the problem is that they wrote this bill the way they wanted to. They're not acknowledging that this is going to develop into that, and their suggestion that they're not going to let it happen, they don't want it to happen, is problematic because, we're back to where we were before. They should not have the authority to impede or even contemplate the impediment of the voters' will. What took place in 2008 to date now is still one of the most offensive things to democracy that could take place. You know what I mean? It's like don't shit talk the law. I mean I'm amongst friends here, but it's a poorly written law. Someone was stoned when they wrote it. Listen, it is the fucking law. Who talks like that about the? It's the simplest argument. It's intended to protect people, not used as a sword to felonize people. If there is a technical rule violation, use your goddamn discretion to call it de minimis and don't call it a felony and let it go. There could have been so many other directions the implementation of this law could have been. They looked for the nuance of ambiguity and fucked them.
Yep.
I've often wondered. I've had conversations with rank and file type officers that are on the street. And some of those guys said, well, wait a minute, come on, marijuana, it's sort of horse shit, but I got to
Medical,
do it.
you mean medical?
No, just marijuana in general. Marijuana in general. And yet, of course, they, have to do it and arrest people and on and on. But I don't feel, I've never seen that kind of vehemence from, at least anecdotally ones I talked. I think where the fanaticism is coming is the top leadership. That like the police chiefs, sheriffs, that kind of thing, and keep in mind, the police is essentially a military organization. It's not a democracy in any way, shape, or form. It's organized like a military. Command proceeds from the top, it goes to the bottom, and you got to do it. You don't talk back. You follow orders. That's just how it goes. This is not the Fortune 500 where you go to the boardroom, have a discussion, and and this is these people. They really have an attitude about it, and they want because it just increases their power. The more crimes you got, the more powerful you are.
The more revenue you generate.
The more revenue you generate, and the more powerful you are, and the more clout, the more you've got over somebody.
2 points that need to be made about any of this debate. I think these are the most compelling. When you step back and look at the amount of resources that are spent in the prohibition of marijuana, it's this simple. 40% of the MSP lab is used to test marijuana. 40% of whatever that budget is. Now, if you're going to complain about other crimes being delayed, swift justice,
but that's not how they look at it.
I'm just
they're
saying,
saying 40. You just said it. 40% of their budget is attributed to marijuana, and you wonder why these people don't want marijuana to be illegal.
Well, this is what I'm saying.
Or want marijuana to be illegal.
Let's call it what it is.
Yeah.
Let's say that it has been a job security.
Yep.
And that by proffering some of this nonsense, they should really just say, listen, we've kind of overdone ourselves here. Got a lot of people on this payroll. Clearly the city's budget of, taking taxes, real estate taxes, homeowner, is not going to cut it. Especially now that we've got that beautiful district court building in our town. Got that extra judge. We got to pay for all that. So we're going to continue to pass laws, continue to have judges, and continue to tie up all this time and effort for the easiest crime, and we're going to ignore all the other crimes that we could. I mean, that's where we're at. I said to a judge the other day, what are you going to do if this thing really happens like it is? You're going to have, he said, 30% of his docket. It's like, I know, a lot of people are going to be out of work. I said, he goes, maybe they'll focus on other crimes. I said, really?
Yeah.
Think it's going to be that easy? Think they're going to be able to give up that easy? But I'm saying that's what this is. Let's call it what it is. It is job security. They're going to lose. It's money. They can't validate any of this.
No.
We went over it point by point. It's fear mongering. They got the fat cat forfeiture. $15 million last year. It's an easy government. I mean, name me a company in Michigan that's making $15 million a year every year. Yeah. I'm telling you, drug task forces, MSP. It's good business. Why do they want to change it?
I'll tell you here's another angle here, and I'm not a big fan of police, but I try to be as absolutely objective as possible. I mean, I cannot imagine being a cop, and every day you're basically dealing with the worst of the human condition. I mean, really, people breaking into stuff and stealing cars and beating up the old lady, and the domestic violence, and and a lot of times, I mean, again, maybe anecdotally, but I guess a lot of so-called criminals, yes, they do have drinking problems, they do have substance abuse problems and things like that. And when you spend your whole life dealing with that, you might begin to think that there might be a link between marijuana and crime. I'm speculating here. And Jones himself, I mean, he was telling me about his stories about being a cop, and one of this whole thing, one of his biggest objections, again, is this, this driving thing. You see so much mayhem on the road, and, if you imagine, who's there first at the scene when somebody's done some gory accident, and somebody's drunk, or somebody gets shot, or cut up, and on and on and on, and when you live with that every day, yeah, I mean, I might be able to cut some of these people some slack. But on another level, Michael, I think you make a valid point. It really is not necessary. There's plenty of other stuff around, and it's not marijuana.
But it doesn't generate revenue, and that's the problem.
Thank you, Jim. I agree. I agree.
And that's why, because you can go, and that's why those rates are so low. What's the rate for murder? It's something insanely low. And it's because when you arrest a murderer, there's no check. You arrest somebody for a large amount of marijuana, you're taking their house, you're taking their stuff, you're taking their car.
Murder, non-negligent manslaughter.
Yeah.
Well, and cops,
31% clearance rate.
There you go.
well, and cops tend to think, from what I know and what I've read, they tend to live in a black and white world. That's what they want. They want clarity. They don't want, any kind of ambiguity. And so they tend to be, there's a moralistic streak, to them. Again, why is prostitution illegal? Well, it's not illegal everywhere. Some places it is legal, like in Nevada and on and on. But it comes from almost a kind of moralistic point that this is a indicative of poor moral character, that you're essentially a bad person. You say, and bad people need to be punished.
Well, it raises the next issue, which is you have to buy into that from some origin story. That origin story is based on flat-out racism. If you really look at it, right?
Yeah.
When the poorer the community, the more that community has been devastated by criminalizing drugs. And I just want to point out some of the statistics about the ACLU. And you can't really have a conversation about legalizing marijuana unless you recognize that its initial policy of making it a Schedule I was designed to go after blacks, Vietnam protesters, Jewish psychiatrists, the anti-war movement. And that was the thing of their political opponents. So when we look at what Michigan was doing, according to the ACLU, times more likely that blacks are arrested as of 2001 in Michigan was 1.3. Times more likely that blacks will be arrested in 2010 rose to 3.3. The percent of change in racial disparity over that period of time was 149.3% increase that an African American would be arrested for marijuana. As it went forward, the 14.3% is the black population in Michigan, to which 36.9 is the number of blacks that are arrested. A difference of 22.5%. In other words, twice as many arrests for blacks as, despite the fact that they make up half of that portion of the population.
Yeah, I agree. And again, Michael, it's also anybody who is in the so-called lower class. Even like white people.
I agree. And this is also financially driven.
Yeah.
It's like
Well, I'll tell you a story. Again, I was a member of the Detroit Athletic Club for 22 years, and a lot of these guys, smoke weed. Okay, but when you talk with them, they don't want it legal. You see, because of course nothing's going to happen to them, and at the same time, the idea is we don't want these lowlifes smoking weed or doing this and doing that and getting out of control and having crime and messing up my front lawn. I'm paraphrasing, but that's kind of the mentality, that was expressed. It's a class thing to some degree.
There's a good argument that all the violence and class development stuff was a result of the war on drugs. We could make that argument, right?
Yeah.
Gangs and things like that came out of, neighborhoods that had been devastated by lacking in families, lacking support, lacking community support, whatever's going to be. The gun violence is related to the war on drugs. It was, you see the devastation of these things. It's unfair to begin that conversation with stop, the shit that's been created from getting any worse. You know what I mean? When it's these laws that brought it about. To me, it's the biggest divide of our political, of our country politically, the divided, because unless you realize the waste of money, the impact it's have on, the economy, for people not being able to work because of convictions, the devastation it's had on families not being, I just think it's, it's got a fundamental unfairness in the way it's
I would even take it to the point where I could call it evil.
Yeah.
I would be willing to use that term. It's profoundly evil.
I agree. When you know that it came back to Nixon, it's like, especially after the Schaefer report, he's like, didn't you get the memo?
Yeah.
I don't give a shit if it's not going to hurt anybody. We want to hurt these people.
That's right.
They're our opponents. We got a chance to fry them.
That's right.
So for the carnage for the last 40, 50 years, based on a lie, the way it's ripped apart black and brown families in inner cities, and they want to cry, they're going to, you know what I mean? And the whole thing, they're going to get it, and it's associated with all this. It's because of prohibition, right? Isn't it?
Yep.
If they let you get it and have it, imagine if it's legal. Imagine it's been legal all these years. Who cares? What would have happened? You know what I mean? Like, you think it would have been any worse than the devastation of the shit that's been from ripping these people out of family, the poor, the people not working, whatever shit they were going to say, right? The lack of, whatever's been ripped out of those communities, and sent to prison, and, associated.
Well, let me throw out something, because there are some Democrats, some so-called liberals, that don't want marijuana legal.
Yep.
And where that's coming from, and Hillary Clinton is one of them.
Yeah.
And it's called the progressive movement. Way back when the progressive movement was actually, along with churches, was responsible for alcohol prohibition. And the reason that was done is because these working stiffs, these lower class, people that aren't as smart as we are, we need to take away that demon rum. We can't have them smoking marijuana because their consciousness is just not going to be there. They're not going to be as ambitious. They're not going to work hard. They're not going to better themselves. They're not going to be making this world a paradise on earth.
Teetotalers. Like the original teetotalers, like in American history, like, the...
Yeah.
They,
but that is a mentality. That is a
abolitionists.
mentality that permeates, especially on some people on the left, that I have seen, and heard. I mean, believe me, there are Democrats that don't like it. It's a minority, but
I would agree with you especially in this regard. We saw that the Democratic Party, 13th and 14th district, is led by old school drug warriors, retired sergeant, sheriff, blah blah blah, and blah blah blah. They are not pro-marijuana. No. They made their careers against it, right?
Sander Levin is a prime example.
Yes.
Well, exactly. And I think it's because people just have a short memory, and we forget. I mean, even if we look 10 years back, the Democratic Party was not for the legalization of marijuana in any way, shape, or form.
And Sandy Levin has never backed down from
Let's
that.
not kid ourselves. The Clinton administration
it
created
was
3 strikes and you're out.
Horrible.
Punish people, send them away for life for like a, C-level felony because it just destroyed the overload of the system, and it was really racist.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the sell that they had to the, and we're still suffering from it. That's they've been the safe part. Like, I would agree, the Democrats were never prison reform.
No.
Until recently, there's never a. I don't know.
They're a bunch of Johnny-come-latelys.
Yeah. I am absolutely convinced that if Hillary Clinton had come out for legalization of marijuana, she would have won that election.
Yep, she would have, for sure.
That would have been the tipping point. And younger people might, I'll take a second look at that. But no, it's all the same tired platitudes, nothing, unique, nothing.
You know what? Now I have something to say to her face if I ever see her. It's a good thing to say. Couldn't have gone for legalization, huh? Look what we got instead. Good one. Good one. Just one little.
Thanks for that.
Deb's over there biting her lip. I'm sorry. I've
actually spoke with her several times, so yeah.
Did she concede the stupidity?
I spoke to her about legalization several times too, and like Tim says, they dance around it. They just dance around.
Well, Debbie Stabenow was
like
another one.
Debbie Stabenow was always so against it, and then
Now
she issued
now
that
she's out.
statement. She
Listen,
issued a statement.
It's all
want to
because
see her in the confessional.
Yeah,
I am not letting
exactly.
her off. I want to hear what she's. You're not going to hear how she got here.
She could be in trouble. I have seen more of her opponent's signs than I've seen anything to do with her all over the
Does
place.
Nothing for me.
Seriously.
Yeah. The lineup this year on both sides is lackluster. I think Dana is really the
That's
one
just
point.
it. That's just it. In this era, when all these folks could have been so much, champion a cause, really like put their neck out there, embrace this. They're all a bunch of politicians.
Well, they always say,
That's why
we have
Dana
bigger
stands
fish to
out of the
fry. That's
I
not
can
really
say-
our thing,
What?
blah, blah, blah. That's what we heard from Sandy Levin,
Who?
from Sandy Levin,
I
for
just-
many, many, many years, from the head of the Michigan
I know.
Democratic Party
Whatever.
for years and
I'm
years
not-
and years. Don't you have bigger fish to fry, Deborah?
Yep.
Shouldn't you be working on something that really means something?
Yeah.
Well, one of the most cynical comments that I heard from a Democrat. Now, this was a long time ago. His name is Mark Brewer.
Yeah.
We're buddies. We have lunch from time to time. We have practically nothing in common, except we like to talk politics. But back after medical marijuana passed in Detroit in 2004, I met him. I talked with him. I said, well, what do you think, Mark, about this medical? He says, no, we can't deal with it. We can't touch that because we don't want to alienate law enforcement. That's exactly what that man told me. That was an exact quote. Now, this is years ago, but that was the position.
Yeah.
They didn't want to
Sounds
medical,
sounds like
whatever.
truth to me.
Again, showing the awesomeness of the police. I mean, if they are,
Yep.
I do have to throw in a disclaimer. Mark Brewer did represent us in Oak Park case.
He did.
And he represented us well, and we won
Yeah.
against the city, and our ballot proposal appeared on the ballot as was
Yeah.
written.
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that he may not be in favor or to be a good lawyer. I'm saying that the political climate.
Well, this
At the
is
time,
years
this was
ago.
many years ago.
This
but
is
yeah.
years ago. That
I
he
know.
made
shows
that
you
I know
the
he has.
impact of
I
it.
know he's changed his attitude. He's come to several
Yeah.
legalized fundraisers. I know.
Yeah.
he's
And if you
changed
ask
that.
the question by Debbie Stabenow, why, or Sandra Levis, because of that they know they're going to lose the police vote.
Yeah.
Like if there's a Democrat, Democrat want to vote for police officers, the Democrat police officers.
I don't know.
Republicans,
I mean,
they care.
maybe Stabenow, but I can tell you, my grandparents, when they were still alive, were very good friends with Sandy Levin, and he was anti-marijuana to his core, as my
core.
grandparents were.
His wife passed away from cancer, and he was not even accepting of medical treatment for cancer patients.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know that she had to have had a horrible
Well-
time at the end, and he was not even accepting of that. Usually
Yeah.
that'll turn somebody
Yeah.
when somebody
Well,
close to them
legend
gets
has it that some of the members of the Levin family or one or other had drug or alcohol problems, and that's oftentimes the source. That's another thing why Debbie Dingle was always so hostile about it. And she's finally come around because her dad, I guess, was a flaming, alcoholic.
And what does
drug
that have to
addict
do
and-
with cannabis? This is what what does that have to do with cannabis?
It's emotional. It's an emotional thing in their head.
yeah, I get
about
it,
it.
but
Yeah.
So punish the entire population because
Yeah,
your
I
father
know.
was
Yeah,
ill.
Right. Brilliant.
You know,
Brilliant. Yeah.
what to say?
All right. I think
Is it the time?
it's about
So
time.
any final words? I feel we kind of we didn't really keep it on track as much. We covered some good stuff, Tim.
Yeah.
We did. Yeah.
I want to kind of talk about the markets. I feel like there's such a thing going on because we got all these, we got up on that point like what how should people feel going forward? Should people feel good? Like 'cause we got legalization going to happen. You can grow plants. You got medical still 72 and patients and you got these dispensaries now. Is it going to be there's going to be a lot of marijuana? Caregivers and patients going to have a existence. There's going to be some, levity on their ability to operate and maybe can make a little something on the side, or is this drive with the licensing going to shut everybody down? Let's finish on that as a topic. It's always a good one to.
No, I think I think the pie is going to be so big when legalization passes. There will be enough money, for everybody, and you're going to have people coming from Michigan, from Ohio and Indiana, and on and on and on. And there's going to be recreational users that just don't want to pay and go to they're going to find it on the illegal market. There's also going to be other people that are going to patronize dispensaries. Not every person that uses marijuana is some indigent hippie. Okay, there's a lot of very affluent people that will go to a dispensary even though it's more money. They'd rather pay for the convenience. There's enough money in all for everybody.
I mean, I agree. Even if you take the numbers, you got 300,000 patients, and 50,000 caregivers, and they just go back to their caregivers.
Yeah.
You got another 7 million people, 6 million people in Michigan. Some have money, some don't. They're going to enjoy buying an ounce here and getting.
I don't know, man. Have
No?
you been to some of these dispensaries?
Listen, I'm just
lines
following
out the door.
The door. Yeah.
What's out the door?
Seriously, you
Oh,
wait.
yeah.
You wait.
Yeah.
A
gotta
half
wait a
hour
half
to even
hour.
get in.
Yeah, and keep in mind,
Yes, but the prices are.
prices are exorbitant. Yeah.
keep in
They're
mind,
not even close to what they're going to be.
No, of course.
And
yeah.
it's still coming. They're homegrown.
I'm telling
It's
you,
like-
this new generation, they don't like.
They don't care?
No, it's not that they don't care. It's that when you get a caregiver, there's a relationship
Right.
that is built between you and that caregiver.
Nobody
and they
wants
would
it?
much rather just walk into the store,
In person.
be like, I want
get what
that
you want.
weed right there, and walk out and never have to deal with that person on a
listen,
personal
there's
level.
a big draw for that for the adult recreational market, men, women,
Yeah.
all ages, and even more so in the elderly population.
Yeah.
I think, like in terms of.
I want to throw out a very important statistic. I think it's extremely significant. That is, study after study after study indicates that roughly 12% of the population uses marijuana. on some sort of regular or irregular basis. Now, we got, about roughly 280 to 300,000 caregivers. Michigan has a population of 10 million people. Whoa, you're just scraping the surface. There is demand out there.
More than a
I'm
million.
convinced of that.
And talking about supply and demand for medical cannabis, tonight's episode of Planet Green Trees is brought to you by the People's Choice of Ann Arbor. At People's Choice, membership is free. All medicine is lab tested to provide patients with meds free of any contaminants. People's Choice also provides convenient online ordering for patients. It is not a certification center and does not have physicians on staff, but can assist you in pointing you in the right direction to obtain your medical marijuana card. Stop by in person or visit our website for more information. People's Choice Provisioning Center is located at 2247 West Liberty Street in Ann Arbor, or call 734-369-8573. Hours are Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., or Sunday, 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. And you can visit them on the web at peopleschoiceofannarbor.com. Again, peopleschoiceofannarbor.com. Ann Arbor's premier provisioning center.
And anyone that wants to hire Steve Miller for some voiceovers, please call Comorn Law at 1-800-656-3557. It reminds me of this final statistic, and we can wrap it up after this, but statistics now show that the use of marijuana has increased 300% in adults 65 and over. Police reacted to this by arresting teenage black men. All right, so the...
This is just absurd.
It's funny. It's a stolen joke from somewhere. But it's really to the point. All right. Any final thoughts as we take our wrap up 399? Hearing no takers, let's just call it.
Let's call it.
Alan Pizer never called him, did he? Jamie, thanks for calling it.
Thanks.
Should
Yeah,
give some more-
I just want to say, I think it's cool that the People's Choice is promoing on Planet Green Trees. Harry is a very cool guy. He was one of the original risk takers, and he's still at it today.
That's cool.
Very cool. Thank you. Have a good night.
See you,
Thank you,
Jamie.
Jamie. All right. Talk with you next week.
All right.